Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome once again to In Time. This is my name is Nicholas Lamar. Soutter. With me, as always, is Ansgar Odinson.
Hey everybody, good evening or, whatever time it happens to be where you're at.
We have actually a good deal of sort of breaking news things that we were discussing, covering today, and a lot of things have changed. It's a little interesting. We're not doing a mass shooting. That's a nice change of pace.
Although we could have. Well, it wasn't really a
We
mass shooting, but it was a shooting that happened recently.
Yes, there was the shooting at the church the Texas church, and we came very close to doing it, because it touches also on gun control, which we've spoken about. Because the shooter was, well, how long did it take for them to get that shooter?
Seconds. It
Sec-
was yeah, he pulled out a gun, he shot two people and was it wasn't
in a
literally seconds,
church.
but he was pretty much
Yeah,
immediately smoked. I
yeah,
mean, I hate to
which
say it like that, but it really is just what happened. There are pictures that have surfaced, and there's I think like 8 or 9 different armed people all aiming guns at the shooter. It it was
Jesus,
it was
don't.
one of those instances where the guy kind of deserved the Darwin Award.
Yeah, I don't go shooting in a church in Texas.
Yeah,
But I've been looking into the church. Their website is down, but I was able to get to it through the Wayback Machine, and it appears to be a Catholic church. I don't know for certain. They don't say what denomination of Christianity, but they certainly believe in the Trinity. They believe baptism is required for salvation, and they believe that so is repentance. So it sounds reasonably close to Catholicism,
mhm.
and it's interesting that a bunch of Catholics had that's for another another time. We do have a couple of stories. Tomorrow we're going to start our series on writing. I will be doing a call-in show. People can come in, do. We'll discuss writing. I am a writer. I've authored 2 novels. Well, a novel and a biography. So if anyone wants to discuss that tomorrow, it'll be early. It'll be 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We and we've just started our series on philosophy too. So we've got a couple of series I think will be interesting coming up. We had wanted to do tomorrow the Australian fires. We are not going to be able to cover them just yet. We've had a very difficult time getting someone who was there who could talk to us about them. Most Americans have no idea that Australia is on fire or just how extraordinarily
Yeah.
serious this is. This is a global emergency and it's going to have profound effects on, and most
Mhm.
Americans have no idea it's happening. And so this is absolutely the kind of thing we should cover. The holidays came up. We had trouble
Uh,
getting someone. It's been a nightmare.
I
So
don't think either of us are exactly qualified to cover this on our own, but I will say that there are species that you, I, our children and grandchildren will never see in the wild in our lifetimes. It will be that long before, even if we can keep them alive in captivity long enough to release, anyone will see them functionally in the wild again. That's profound.
and that's essentially because our habitats have been completely wiped out. I mean,
Hmm.
that's how big. Now, these fires are the size of California, if I've heard correctly.
That was the last I heard, and I don't know. They might be getting bigger, they might be getting smaller, but the last I heard, yeah, they were about the size of California.
And there's no right now. There's containment, as I understand it. It seems to be a joke.
Hmm.
There's no way to contain anything. The U.S., other countries are sending firefighters and resources in, but it's right now a losing battle, and it is blamed largely on climate change, on an increase in temperature and weather difficulties. Now, did we have some other breaking news on this just as we started here?
We do. Uh, right now, the last I saw, I'm looking at it right now. It's 4,000. 4,000 people right now are trapped on Australia's waterfront. Ostensibly, they were in a town. The town has been overwhelmed with fire. This happened just about half an hour ago. It seems like it when it
All
was
right.
reported. Not even. But yeah, about half an hour ago. The flames have engulfed this waterfront town, and 4,000 people have been trapped on the waterfront, nowhere to go. They have absolutely nowhere to go. And so, who knows how long they're going to be trapped there, how long it's going to take for fire crews to be able to rescue them. But 4,000 people is a massive population to be trapped on a beach. You know what I mean? I mean, you try to picture 4,000 people trapped on a beach in your
Yeah.
mind, you know?
Well, and it seems to me that I mean, if you take a look at the picture here, and I mean, this is Australia. This is happening now,
Mhm.
and like I said, it's been happening for 2 weeks, more than that, and I definitely lament that we haven't been able to report on it sooner. It's a lot going on everywhere, I think. But do we know? I mean, it seems to me there was a question: can they get a boat? I mean, it's
I'm
going to
seeing
need
a
to be a
picture of
lot
a
of
girl on
boats
a
now.
boat here, but yeah, 4,000 people is going to take a lot of boats.
But it's essentially it's Dunkirk is what it sounds like, which
Hmm.
is Dunkirk was the when the French were overrun and the American, British, and French forces had to retreat, and they were stuck on a beach and nowhere to go. And the Germans were coming. The Germans actually stopped, and they had 3 days to evacuate an unprecedented number of troops. I think there's unfortunately a lot less time in this case, and I don't know. I mean, I imagine they could go into the water to some extent. We don't know anything about this, but
No.
it sounds um,
I'll give
rather
you all
terrible.
the information that we have is that right now, winds very quickly pushed an emergency level wildfire toward their town, the town of Malakuta, I think is the way it's pronounced, and they fled toward the water side. And right now, the town has been shrouded in darkness from the smoke and then turned a shade of bright red. That's pretty much all we know is that right now they're stranded on the waterfront. We see people in boats. There's probably people waiting out in the water. And until we know more, that's really all we can report on. But yeah, Malakota, 4,000 people, they're trapped on the waterfront.
All right, and Ansgar may be able to go to our Discord. As I understand it, Red Eye has dropped a few more pictures and articles on it there. So if we can get those uh, before we continue, we've actually got this is only one of the stories we're covering, but probably the most urgent and most serious, I think. And like I said, you know, we had wanted to cover this in depth tomorrow, but we've been having a hard time with our guest. Stuart is in our live chat. He bailed on us. We said, "Hey, you seem like an expert. We'd love to have you on." And he goes, "I don't know anything, mate." And I was just like, "But you live in Australia. Doesn't that make you?" And I thought all Australians knew each other, but I guess not.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, I'm not
yeah,
seeing
and then
anything
how about
about
other?
this particular situation in our Discord, but there are some interesting. There's like an interesting picture, but yeah, Victoria is getting hit really hard. People are afraid the death toll will rise. Um, yeah, I think that a lot of this stuff, buildings being raised in the outskirts of Koryong, I think a lot of this stuff we'll have to save for when we can get in a good guest in here to really cover the whole thing.
It looks like Sami Jenkins may be able to do it. So let's find out if he's free at some point when we can do it. I don't think we can do a whole show on it because this is, well, I don't think we can do it now. It looks
Right.
like he's available now to talk, which would be great. But really, we have a number of things to cover, and this is more of a breaking news. This isn't a full episode. So I would love to, Sami, if you can talk to either Ansgar or Dave or myself on the Discord, and then we'll try to get you scheduled. Ansgar's got the full schedule, so he's probably the best person to talk to. But it sounds like, I mean, we have a couple of Aussies here, and it sounds, I mean, it's been affecting all of them. And we've, you know, it's insane, and I think there's, like I said, there's going to be some global consequences to it, and it's amazing that the U.S. news. I'm aware that we're undergoing a historic impeachment and a few other things, but it's really quite staggering that this isn't covered more. So we will try to bring that to you as soon as Sami Jenkins gets a hold of us. Where have you been for the last 2 weeks? All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh, okay, so I have a little tiny bit more information,
please.
that as things have been updated. Apparently, there was an emergency siren that went out, and Let's see. There's no way out. This is a quote from a Malakuta resident, Jason Selms, after evacuating the home. As the day wore on, the sky lightened to a bright orange and the fires began spreading through the town. Photos of the ground shows homes set aflame and approaching fire line. There are 3 emergency strike teams with the residents at the beach. So there are strike teams, stranded ostensibly with them at the beach as well. And which is good. And emergency services are setting up medical centers and safe evacuation locations, according to state agency Victoria Emergency. So they do have aid. They have 3 emergency strike teams, and they are setting up an evacuation location on in the area where they are stranded. So that's a little bit better than news than we had before.
And if I think we'll hopefully, it would be nice if the U.S. media starts to cover it, whether they do or don't. If it's information that's sort of readily available, we may not cover it. But if it turns out to be um, something that you guys need to know, we will do a stream on that. Sami Jenkins here did say, however, that it is 109.4 degrees and it's 5 p.m. where he is. So where he is,
Wow.
it's 109.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's 5 p.m. So I mean I've seen the California fires. I've seen them up close, as, as I know you have too. And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
heat and especially the Santa Ana winds really do it. And this is worse than any Santa Ana winds I've ever heard of.
Well, here in California, we just lost an entire town to a wildfire this last fire season. And we thought that was huge. It's got nothing on what's going on in Australia right now. Nothing.
Yeah, I mean a fire the whole size of California is yeah. So
It's
we will
mind-boggling.
try. Yeah, we'll try to get that to you guys. So thank you very much for your patience with that. We do have 3 other stories. We're going to try to get through reasonably quickly. Was Trump impeached? During our last 2 live streams, actually, one was a birthday party for our producer, Dave McGinnis, and we did discuss the impeachment briefly during that. And we'd also discussed the impeachment with Landon Kurt Knoll. And during that discussion, we had heard a few times that Trump had not actually been impeached. And the reason he had not been impeached was because that the impeachment isn't complete until the articles are sent to the to the Senate, which right now Nancy Pelosi is keeping them in the House. So the reason she's doing this, there are ostensibly a couple of reasons. One, she likes holding them over him, I suspect. Another reason is because she doesn't want to send them until she likes the rules as set up in the Senate. The Republicans are setting up the rules in the Senate. They can set up any rules they want. So she keeps this over Trump. She keeps this over the Republicans until there are rules that she feels this is their last. Once it goes over, that the Republicans can do anything. So
Right.
she's waiting until the rules are established and then do it. That's what she's saying. I think that's a huge part of it. I think there's other politics going on. So she's holding on to these articles.
And I think
However,
that's in some ways kind of intelligent because, if nothing else, even if they decide they're going to do something, totally screwed up, they have to publicly vocalize that before they ever even get the articles into their hand.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Oh, they even if they decide to do something shady, even if they decide to do something
Oh
like,
yes,
"Oh,
yes.
we won't allow this or we won't allow that," they have to publicly state what they're going to do before they ever receive the articles, which kind of keeps everything at least out in the open.
Yeah, I think it's a very good move. The New York Times had a piece by Harvard law professor Noah Feldman, and
Mhm.
he had argued that no, Trump has not been impeached. You can't withhold his pay. You can't. The protections against suits don't come down. He has not been impeached until those articles are transferred over, and he argues that impeachment, as contemplated by the Constitution consists of sending the articles over for trial. Now, what I find interesting about this is he's like, impeachment as contemplated by the Constitution. First of all, the Constitution is a piece of paper. It doesn't contemplate anything. I assume he means the founding fathers.
Contemplated in the Constitution by the founding fathers. Yeah.
Yeah, as contemplated by the well, and well, no, but there's a reason I point that out.
Hmm.
Um, he's a fucking constitutional professor. He should be accurate. That's just, I mean, I'm going to have a
Yeah.
hard time taking seriously the opinions of a person who doesn't get that right. The Constitution doesn't contemplate anything. Now, if we're talking about the founding fathers, which I assume he is, this gets into, he's interpreting what they wanted, not what's written, and you have to go by what's written. And I agree that you can have a court determine it, but until then, it's just an opinion. And here's the other interesting thing. I assume that this is the article that people have been using to say, and I've heard this on Twitter a couple times. I've heard this in our chat. No, he's not been impeached. He hasn't been impeached because the articles haven't gone over there. It's a technicality, but they haven't gone over there. All of this is technicality. So I'm okay with if technically he hasn't been based on. But all of it seems to come from this one New York Times article. And what everyone fails to mention is it was an op-ed.
Right. An opinion piece.
It was an opinion piece. It is the opinion of one Harvard professor. And as soon as that piece came out, another Harvard professor, Professor Lawrence Tribe, said under that it would disagreed and said that it was just an opinion. And in fact, he was dead wrong. The president has been impeached, period. And no act in the prince essentially said, I forget how he worded it, something to the effect of, there is no act any man alive can do to reverse that process. He
Mhm.
is now the third president in American history to be impeached. That's done. Now, what he quotes is Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5 of the Constitution. The House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment. Here's why that's important. By saying the sole power of impeachment, if you don't have the process finished until you've sent it over to the Senate and the Senate receives them, you're giving the Senate power because the Senate doesn't have to actually gavel in. If the Senate doesn't gavel in, if the Senate spends 3 weeks on vacation because they don't want him to be impeached, now they've got the power. By saying they have the sole power, what you are saying is the second they declare it, it's done. They don't have to send it over. That's a
Mm.
procedural. They have the sole power. If successfully transmitting it to the Senate was a part of the process, now the Senate does have some power in it because they can just refuse to take them.
Right. They
And
could
they could
just
do this
refuse to
procedurally.
allow yeah, which is not even remotely let's say politically responsible to allow that kind of abuse.
But it's also just not what's in the Constitution. It's just not what's
Yeah.
written.
Yeah.
What's written says solely in the power of the House. The House
Right.
has utilized that power, done. So since this other interpretation by Mr. Feldman would give power to the Senate because they could decline it, no, there's no. Anyways, the consensus is by every professor I have heard of, by anyone talking about this, with the exception of one guy who did an op-ed. He was a Harvard law professor. The consensus is he has been impeached and he will remain impeached. The Senate, the House can hand over those articles whenever they want. But I wanted to clear that up because that's
Yeah.
been floating around a lot.
I think
Um,
we eventually
oh,
need to do by the way, an episode just on op-eds and what they are, because I see a lot of people confused on
oh
what an
my
op-ed
God.
is. In fact, I've seen a lot of people get really, really, I'm going to use the term triggered here, because, oh my God, how dare this publication publish this? It was an op-ed.
Oh,
They
God. We
don't,
need to.
yeah.
Our producer is in the live chat, so hopefully he'll mark that. We got to get good about marking. We got like 30
Hmm.
great show ideas that we keep coming up with that keep falling through the cracks. Along those lines, there was a bombshell report that you had found on Sky. What was that?
So they're calling this a game changer. It said that the Democrats say, I'm just going to read it right here from the headlines. The Democrats say bombshell report shows need for witnesses in Senate impeachment trial. Now you looked into this, from what I remember. What exactly does this mean? What is the significance of this report?
Well, there's a couple of things. So first of all, uh, and I would like to take that. Is there is yeah? Let's take that down. Well, okay.
You want me to take it
Um,
down?
uh, until yeah, just for now.
All right.
Um, thank you. The let's see. So what was I going to say? Okay, so we discussed this before. Mitch McConnell had um, claimed that they were not going to call any witnesses. And the argument that he was using for them not calling any witnesses was, hey, if the House wanted witnesses, they should have called them themselves. Well, they did call witnesses. The White House blocked them all, and the White House blocked them all illegally.
Mm-hmm.
This has been contested. It is winding its way through the courts. It will get to the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court will probably rule in the legislature's favor, but that's still 8 months away. So, they don't want to wait 8 months. Mitch McConnell is trying to make this wait 8 months because he wants the election to be done.
Right.
And so what he has said is, we're not going to call any witnesses. They should have called them if they wanted them. They did. And their job is just to establish the charges. They are essentially much closer to a grand jury. We have the charges. Here they are. The trial is held in the Senate. In a trial, you call witnesses. It's their job to get to the truth of the matter, not the House's. So he's abdicating his responsibility and the responsibility of the Senate. They are completely, and they're counting on the fact that most people don't understand this process. And admittedly, it's an arcane and difficult process. But they're counting on the fact that people don't understand
And
this
many
process.
people don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he said he's not going to call any witnesses. Ostensibly, why this is important is because they're trying to make an argument for why he has to call witnesses, especially these people. But what's interesting about this, and I think kind of went under the radar, was that John Bolton, who was a top presidential advisor at the time, I think he was, oh Jesus, what was he at the time? I've spaced it. He's been bounced around so much. I want to say Secretary of State. No, he wasn't Secretary. John Bolton. Somebody in the live title remind me what John Bolton was at the time. John Bolton said explicitly, quote, "It is in the best interest of this country that you release the money." The reason that's important is because, and the article sort of glossed over that, but it can't be an accident that they actually put that in the piece, because that's huge. That's huge because the charge against the president is that he used his office for personal gain. He is required by law to do what's in the best interest of this country. He is required to do that. If one of his top advisors told him what was in the best interest of the country and he went the other way, now, first of all, he knows. Second of all, you've got other member, or he knew, I should say. That somebody told him he shouldn't do this, and he can't. National Security Advisor, that was correct. Thank you. So John Bolton, Coessa's in South Korea, and Coessa knew it, and I didn't. Great. I feel so. Mm. So National
Do you
Security Advisor.
feel so well informed now?
I do. I feel great about my position here. So we're going to just bring Coessa up and have Coessa do the show. So this is the National Security Advisor telling him it is in the best interest of this country for you to release the money, and he refused. So now he knew what he was doing was a violation of his oath of office, and his National Security Advisor knew. And the question is, how many other people knew? And according to this report, Mike Pompeo, Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, oh Jesus, I always get that one, and Robert Blair, all of them said he was wrong and he needed to release the money. This is ostensibly why they're being blocked. If they testify before Congress, they will say they told him this. So it seems like if he's going to argue, no, what I did was fine, okay, but the vast majority of the White House staff, including all his advisors, disagree with him and agree with the Democrats. That's huge. Getting them to testify is going to be another thing, but that was the biggie in my view.
Right.
That one line there.
So
Yes.
that makes it. How does that make it more difficult for them to refuse to take witnesses?
Technically, it doesn't. It only does if the pressure mounts from their constituents and from other people saying, "Hey, wait a minute," you know what I mean?
Right.
It also gives them cover. I think there are more that want to burn him, that want to burn Trump, than are actually saying it, but they need cover. If you've got his top aides all admitting that he should not have done this, that gives them cover. And that gives them a cover where at some point they can sit there and say, I love my party, but I love this country more. And
Right.
so I'm going to throw Trump under the, and
Or
that's,
at the very least, they could say, while I don't agree with such and such and such and such, this is it is my constitutional duty to, do
yep.
X, Y, and Z. Yeah, no, I get where you're going.
And then of course, Mike Pence takes over, who's more conservative. So win-win for them. I don't get what the problem is on that side, but okay, fine.
No.
So and then the last is a smaller thing, but I think really quite worth noting. Um, the hashtag poll the people has become #1, at least for a few hours on Twitter. And there are a few other people who are discussing this topic. And the reason is this. The DNC appears to have decided that they will not accept any recent polling regarding the candidates when it comes to their qualifications for the January 10th debate. This is important because it seems an awful lot like what happened the last time around when they really screwed over Bernie. Now,
for people who
the state.
might have lived under a rock, how did the DNC screw over Bernie last time around?
Well, there was a tremendous amount of. First of all, Bernie was actually an independent. And everybody knew he was an independent, but he couldn't win as an independent. So he wanted to run with a candidate, with a party. He ran with the Democrats. As a Democrat, he's supposed to be treated equally to all the other Democrats. Instead, they funneled extra money to Hillary Clinton. They funneled extra data to Hillary Clinton. They the standards would change so that the debates were engineered specifically towards her strengths and his weaknesses. And it was, and then the head of the DNC.
And even the order in which they started doing the votes of what states they made sure that all the states they knew Hillary would win came up first to make it so that by the time the states where Bernie was likely to win, or the states where it was undecided, they were hoping that it worked, that Bernie voters would be demoralized and less of them would vote.
Well, and that should build up momentum so that it just looks like there's no way. Yeah. So they really threw Bernie under the bus. Now, a quick super chat. Who will be to Trump? Which Brutus was to Caesar? Will it be? Will Bolton be that guy? Yes. Absolutely. Bolton
Just yes.
hates him. Bolton hates him. Bolton wanted nothing more than to, and thank you very much, by the way, for that super chat. We really appreciate it. You've been so helpful and supportive, and so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, seriously.
Bolton hates him. Bolton really wanted to just invade Iran, and Trump said no, and Bolton was engineering to get a war in Iran. There still may be a war in Iran. Certainly we have violated, and Bolton was thrilled about, we violated our treaty with Iran. We absolutely, irrefutably violated our treaty with Iran. Trump would have done that without Bolton. But Bolton thought this was, hey, we're going to just destroy Iran now. No, we didn't do that. Bolton is pissed. And then Bolton essentially got booted out. And he's lost everything that he sort of wanted to gain politically, and he will absolutely destroy Trump if he can, but he has to do it with plausible deniability, because it would destroy his career to wipe out the sitting Republican president. He will do it if he gets any. That was a astute observation. So the DNC, all the polls at the time, and they get kind of inaccurate because there's distance. But before Hillary won, the polls all had Bernie beating Trump much better than Hillary. And it was a much closer race, Hillary versus Trump. And of course, we know what happened there. So the general wisdom is that if the DNC hadn't have intervened, and if the DNC had just let an honest race be won, Bernie would have won, and Bernie would have, the Democrats then would have won the national election. So one of the reasons the Democrats lost was because they fiddled with their own party, and they put up a worse candidate that they felt they wanted to empower.
Social engineering never goes well.
No, Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like that's what they're doing again. And here's how and why. What they're saying now is for what's going to be the seventh, Democratic debate is on January 10th. Now, in order to be in any debate, you have to qualify for that debate. And in order to qualify for each debate, there's a higher and higher bar. You have to have, for this one, I think 5% nationally, but that 5% can also be made up in three separate polls, 5% nationally or 5% in any of the qualifying states, which would be Nevada, Vermont, New Hampshire. I would, wow, sorry, I'm tired. Nevada, New Hampshire, and one other that I can't think of right now. I don't think it's Ohio because they're not in early voting, but one of the really early states. If you poll a 5% at any of those, you get in. They have stopped all the local poll. They've stopped the national polling too, but they stopped the local polling much further back. When did they stop it? Between 38 and 40 days ago, they have stopped all the polling. Now, this was just after the fifth debate, before you could see a bump from that fifth debate. So after a debate, if there's going to be a bump, it takes a couple days for that bump to register in the polling. They stopped the polling right after the debate before, if somebody did really, really well and their numbers just skyrocketed, it's going to take a little while. We wouldn't know. If somebody did poorly and their numbers went down to the point where they should be removed, we wouldn't know because the polling stopped just a couple days after that debate. That was the fifth debate. There has since been a sixth debate. There's been no polling done since then. So nobody knows. It's as if the debate didn't even happen because they're not polling to see if anybody did well in that debate and should qualify for the next one.
Are they even trying to give a reason for why they're doing this?
Yes, the reason they've given is that it costs money and they're trying to save the money for the general election. That's the appropriate. That is the appropriate response. To which, by the way, a number of the candidates, so Booker, Steiner, and Yang, have all seriously objected to this, and they've said that this isn't fair.
They should.
Well, yeah. Well, one of the people pointed out when this was happening to Bernie, he objected, but now he's actually quiet, which is unfortunate. He hasn't said anything. Now, what they're saying is, look, we're saving the money, and polling does cost a lot of money, but here's the interesting thing. Well, there's a lot of interesting things, but what these candidates have done, and Yang in particular has said he will pay for the polling himself out of pocket, and the polling would benefit everyone. It goes to everyone, and he will pay for the DNC to do the polling so that they can understand who actually, as of the cutoff point, will meet the requirements and those who won't. Now, the DNC has also said that they have actually added an extra week to the polling cutoff date for when it counts for the qualifying time. But if I understand correctly, they added it to the beginning, not the end. So there's a window. There is like a 6-week window in which you have to make that. That's exactly the proper look. There's a 6-week window in which you have to make that time, rather than count an extra 7th week at the end. They added the 7th week at the beginning. So if you polled really well early on and then dipped below, you could still qualify. But if you, in the next week, if you come up to the qualifying point, it doesn't help you.
So as long as a candidate has, the ability to travel through time, they're fine, man. Otherwise,
yeah, well, but that, to be fair, that makes sense because if they can travel through time, I think they deserve to be president.
that's probably true. Yeah. I am.
Yeah,
none of this makes any sense at all. Like,
welcome to the DNC.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The reason this is big news isn't even so much that any one specific candidate's getting fucked.
They're fucking all of them equally. I mean, please don't. Let's not.
Yeah.
Let's just,
Yeah. The news here though is they haven't learned their lesson from last election. And the last election, a lot of people refused to vote for Hillary, not because necessarily they hated Hillary, but because they were disillusioned by the DNC. You're gonna get. Thing is we need voters to be, impassioned and to be, charged up. Whatever side you're on, you want your voters, your voting bloc, you want them passionate. This kind of shit does not get voters passionate. This kind of shit disillusions, especially the young idealistic ones that are the ones you want voting.
And usually the ones supporting the younger candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Yang, for example, okay, so Yang is going to come up again. He has gotten 5% in one poll. Now, he still needs 2 more to qualify at the national level, but if he gets 5% on any of the state ones, he's in, so long as it's one of the qualifying states.
Unless they
And there's evidence to believe, there's evidence to believe he's hit that. There's evidence to believe he's hit that, and he has done a tremendous amount of ad campaigning, and that campaigning hasn't just started. He hasn't been campaigning. He didn't campaign in New Hampshire or Iowa or any of Vermont. He didn't start campaigning 30 or 40 days ago because he didn't need the numbers then. And you've only got so much money. He's starting his media blitz now. This is when his numbers are going to go up. People who haven't heard of him are going to suddenly hear of him, and he only has to make 5%. But now is when they stop the polling.
That's just. I am sure we Mikey says and people wonder why black people don't vote. This is absolutely true. When you, and it's not just black people, it's young people, there's a lot of demographics that don't vote, not because they don't have strong political opinions, but because they believe that there's no point in it. They feel like the system is rigged. When you start doing this kind of shit, people check out of the system. You know what I mean? They check out and they don't participate. And this kind of thing will absolutely get people to check out of the system. You know what I mean?
Well, and I feel what probably bothers me the most about this is I fucking have to admit Ansgar was right. We've covered. Okay, that's not just me. That sounded like Emperor Palpatine. I'm sorry, that did. Everybody in the live chat, 1 for yes, 0 for no. That was Palpatine. Now, here's the thing. We've done these debates.
Give
and
in to your hatred.
Jesus, I'm not here. Nobody can see me, so I'm not here anymore.
Oh my God.
Just a little. Okay. That was scary. So, well, we've covered the debates, and I'd like to go back to covering them, especially when they become a bit more important. We've missed a few. We covered a number of them. But I think Ansgar did jade me a little bit. I sort of felt like, there was some value in covering them, but he was just like, no, there's no value. We're going to cover them, but there's no value in covering them, none whatsoever. And it was a good sport about it. We were there, and we had a lot of fun. And we were with ProLib and Mikey, and we had a really good time. And I did realize we were probably treating it with just about the level of respect it deserved. But I still really thought that there was at least some purpose to it, and that you still got to learn something about the candidates, even if it was in 5 or 10 second clips on the next day. But this has now the ostensibly, at a minimum, the sixth debate has no meaning in terms of the party, because none of the polls were taken after that debate. None. So if Biden went up and blew away, took out the gun and blew away Elizabeth Warren, that's not going to affect his qualifications for the next debate. It's not going to affect it. So
just bring out the latest candidate who died on a like a marionette. No big deal. Sorry,
so,
I mean. They still qualified. Bernie could have a heart attack tomorrow, and they're still going to wheel him out for the debates,
So, and And because I mean there were polls after the 5th, but anybody who's done this kind of work will tell you you need actually you need more than 2. You need 4 days minimum realistically. They cut it to 2 and they say, "Oh, you can do it in 2." Yeah, usually, but you're not safe until 4 days. The real polling, you're starting to get information about 4 days after a debate as to what actually happened. Minimum of 4 days, and their polling was less than 2, as I understand it, the last one. So the 5th really doesn't count, and the 6th can't be possibly said to. It's irrelevant.
The problem is
Jesus.
the
Okay, wait, read what Mikey just said.
all right. Hold on, let me find it. Hashtag weekend at the Bernie Sanders. Oh my God! Weekend at Bernie Sanders. That's amazing. Oh, that'd make
Really
a
good.
great political cartoon. Oh my God.
Another shirt. We got another shirt. Weekend at Bernie Sanders. Are totally stealing that one. I mean, Ansgar, you did a great job coming up with that. I like that.
Yeah, of course,
That was
yeah.
good. Yeah. Okay. Great. So I was
Great.
sorry you
Pin
were
me as
saying.
stealing from the black man. Great.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was no accident.
Oh man.
All right.
Oh, but
All right.
yeah, this
Yeah.
this to me, I'm not sure what happened when the DNC became this like monster, but the last at least the last 2 elections, they seem to want to tell us who we are going to vote for. You know what I mean? And this is one of the main reasons anyone on the DNC, if you're listening, I'm a nonpartisan. I almost always vote left. Almost always vote very left, and I am a nonpartisan. It's a reason young people don't vote. It's a reason black people don't vote. It's a reason minorities in general don't want to vote. They're disillusioned. They don't feel anyone is really listening. They feel that someone is from on high is telling them, "Here is your new savior."
And if Andrew Yang has a credible claim to this next debate and he gets booted out because of this, if Andrew Yang goes to the debate and he loses fair and square, most of his supporters are going to glow him onto someone else and they will stay in the process. If Andrew Yang is cut out, if there's a little, just they take a scalpel and pull him out of the picture, they're taking most of his voters with them. And last time that cost them everything. I did want to say, just Ansgar, just so you know, Mikey has said he's going to appropriate your joke. I can't believe him. Yeah, yeah,
That appropriating bastard.
yeah. I know. I was gonna do one other joke. I think that would be a little too far, so I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it while I'm just a little bit ahead, just in the slightest little bit ahead. Oh, but Mikey wanted to do the on writing thing, and he wants to. So Mikey can tell the live chat. We hopefully I have something. I think he'll tell them that I have something to offer. Of course, now maybe he won't. It's like, yeah, he'll steal all your stuff. But we're looking forward to that episode. I appropriate. Ansgar appropriated you. Well, I don't know about that, but you and Ansgar can sort that out.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Yep. All right. Well, so that's it. I think overall, a lot of interesting stuff. The Yang, Booker, and Steyer stuff about that's actually been going on for a little while. We didn't really know about that till today. There was an email leaked where Yang was just like, "Look, would really like to participate, and we'd like it to be a fair process. What can you do?" And he's the only remaining minority, I believe. Well, there's Elizabeth Warren as a woman, but he's the only
Well, I don't
non-white
necessarily
on
know that being a woman counts as a minority necessarily. I mean, I guess there's an argument for it, but it seems like I guess it depends on how you define minority.
No, actually, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
So let's see.
How about this? He's definitely the only person that isn't white left on the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that dropped today. This bombshell report that they're going to use to try to force witnesses. That's an interesting one.
Mhm.
Trump. Yes, Trump was impeached. We called it here, and we actually have a pretty good record, I think, so far of calling things. Actually, that one wasn't a difficult call. I'll be
No,
honest with
no.
you. We went live with that one before it happened. Trump has been impeached in 5 minutes. Um, and then, all right. But I think that just about covers it. We're gonna see you guys on writing tomorrow. Hopefully, we will be able to get in touch with somebody who. The problem is trying to find. Okay, here's the deal. Qualified people. We want to find somebody who's qualified on the wildfires. The problem we've had with that is qualified people in general only want to go on qualified shows. So we've
Mm.
had some difficulties. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
problem.
yeah.
We have a hard one. Yeah, it's
Is
if
that
you're
the
credible as a
problem?
person. Yeah, well,
Oh
that's what I
man.
hear. That's what I hear is that if you're credible, you only want to go on credible shows. And so I think we're gonna, yeah, we may be fighting an uphill battle on that one, but I'm willing to throw Ansgar under the bus. I mean, fight alongside Ansgar. That way.
But I was just gonna say that. So all I had to do is swap you out for somebody else, and we could get guests on here.
Yeah, probably. I probably yes.
Because the hat is
Uh,
qualified. Trust me, the hat
do I have
is
a kill
qualified.
switch on this side? Or no,
No,
I
no,
don't.
you don't. Yeah.
No, that was probably wise on your part.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you bright and early, 10:30 Eastern Standard tomorrow for On Writing, and hopefully, I really do. Obviously, everyone hopes that things work for the best. Those fires, look into those fires on your own. We will cover it as soon as we can, much more in depth. It's complicated, it's big, and it isn't being covered by the American news press at all, which is really criminal.
Yeah, and many people are saying this is the first shot across the bow as far as major global environmental disasters. So,
And we'll be. I think we're all. I don't know if Ansgar will be. I'll be in the Discord for a little while after this. So hopefully
yeah,
Ansgar
I
will.
can
I
be
think
in
can be
Discord
in
for a
there
little
probably.
bit.
Yeah. So we'll chat a bit more with people then. And until then, see you all tomorrow.
See ya.